There's a pattern no one talks about. Why do some people feel a powerful, almost magnetic pull towards someone from a completely different country, a different culture, a different world? Most think it's just curiosity, the excitement of something new. But psychology says otherwise. Because that attraction you feel may have been shaped long before you ever knew what love was. Psychologists who study relationships have discovered something quietly unsettling. The type of person we're most attracted to and the dynamics we keep recreating in our love lives aren't random. They're deeply rooted in something called attachment style, a set of emotional patterns formed in childhood that follow us into every relationship we ever have. And here's where it gets interesting. When it comes to international dating, say a Western man drawn to a Russian woman, the science of attachment doesn't just apply. It may explain nearly everything. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why certain people are so strongly pulled to partners from other cultures, why those relationships feel different from the start, and why some of them work, while others collapse in ways no one saw coming. Stay with this until the end. The final insight might change how you see your own patterns entirely. Before we get to the international part, we need to understand the foundation. In the 1960s, a British psychologist named John Bowlby proposed something radical. He said that humans are biologically wired to form deep emotional bonds, and that the quality of the bond you form with your earliest caregiver becomes a kind of internal template, a blueprint your nervous system carries into every relationship that follows. His research was later expanded by Mary Ainsworth, whose landmark experiments identified 3, later 4, core attachment styles. There's the secure type, about 50% of people. These individuals trust easily, communicate openly, and handle conflict without falling apart. Then there's the anxious type. These are people who constantly worry they're not loved enough. They need reassurance. They read into silences. They're deeply devoted, but that devotion often comes with fear. Next, the avoidant type. People who keep emotional walls up, who value independence above intimacy, and who tend to disappear precisely when things get close. And finally, the disorganized type, the rarest and most complex. People caught between a desire for closeness and a deep terror of it. Here's the critical thing. Your attachment style doesn't just affect how you love, it affects who you love. Most people believe they choose their partners consciously. They see someone attractive. They feel chemistry. They fall in love. But neuroscience tells us something different. The brain is always running a background scan, comparing every new person you meet against a stored emotional template of what familiar feels like. And familiar doesn't always mean healthy. It means known. For an anxiously attached person who grew up in an emotionally unpredictable household, the calmest, most stable person in a room might actually feel boring. Not because anything is wrong with that person, but because their nervous system isn't wired to recognize calm love as love. What it does recognize: tension, uncertainty, the feeling of chasing something just slightly out of reach. This is where the pull toward international partners begins to make a great deal of sense. Let's use a specific example, because specifics are where the real psychology lives. For decades, Western men, particularly from the United States and Northern Europe, have reported an unusually strong attraction to Russian women. Not just physical attraction, something deeper. A feeling that these women are different, more feminine, more direct, more serious about love. But what is actually happening psychologically? Russian culture, shaped by Soviet-era collectivism and centuries of historical hardship, tends to produce women with a particular emotional profile. They are often raised with very clearly defined gender expectations. Femininity is expressed openly and without apology. Emotional directness is normal. Commitment, once given, is treated as something serious. For a man with an anxious attachment style, someone who grew up never quite feeling chosen, never quite feeling enough, This can feel overwhelming in the best possible way. Here is a woman who doesn't play games, who communicates what she wants, who seems to invest fully. His nervous system lights up, not because this is unhealthy, but because it matches something he always wanted and never had. For a man with an avoidant attachment style, the attraction often works differently, but it's just as strong. Paradoxically, here's the part that surprises most people. The avoidant man, the one who runs from closeness, who values his independence, who shuts down when relationships get intense, he is often the most drawn to the idea of an international partner. Why? Because there's a built-in emotional distance, a cultural buffer, a practical barrier, language, geography, time zones, that gives his avoidant brain exactly what it needs, a way to control the pace of closeness. The international relationship starts with that distance, and so it never triggers the avoidant's deepest fear, being consumed by intimacy. At least not at first. And then something unexpected happens. The relationship deepens, the distance closes. The emotional reality of real commitment begins to arrive. And suddenly, that same man who pursued this woman across continents begins to pull away. What looked like international romance from the outside was, underneath, an anxious avoidant dynamic playing out on a global stage. The anxious avoidant pairing is sometimes called the trap. It is the most common relationship dynamic in the world, and it creates relationships that are extraordinarily intense and extraordinarily unstable. The anxious partner chases. The avoidant pulls away. The chasing increases the avoidant's withdrawal. The withdrawal intensifies the anxious partner's fear. Around and around, across weeks, months, sometimes years. Now take that dynamic and add cultural difference. For the anxious partner, cultural distance becomes an explanation for every confusing behavior. She's not cold. That's just how Russian women are. She's not pulling away. She's just culturally less expressive. The cultural frame gives the anxious partner permission to rationalize behavior that would otherwise be a clear red flag. For the avoidant partner, the cultural frame works in the opposite direction. Every time the relationship gets too intense, there's an easy exit. She doesn't understand my culture. We're just too different. The culture becomes a shield, a convenient reason to never fully commit. But here is where the story gets hopeful, because not every cross-cultural relationship is a trap. The people most likely to build genuine, lasting international partnerships are, not surprisingly, those with secure attachment styles. The securely attached person doesn't need cultural difference to regulate closeness. They don't need the drama of distance or the high of the chase. What they're looking for is something simpler and rarer. A partner who shows up. When a securely attached Western man connects with a Russian woman, something different happens. He doesn't misread her directness as aggression. He doesn't confuse her emotional seriousness with control. And he doesn't use cultural difference as a reason to keep one foot out the door. He simply engages. He's curious. He respects the difference while building genuine intimacy across it. And the research consistently shows these are the international couples who actually thrive. Here is the deepest truth this topic has to offer, and it's one that most people never reach. The question isn't really, why are some people attracted to partners from other cultures? The real question is, what unfinished emotional business is that attraction serving? For some people, the international partner represents an escape from a painful past, a broken self-image, or a pattern they don't know how to exit at home. The foreign becomes a fantasy, and fantasies, by design, cannot survive contact with reality. For others, the international partner represents something genuinely new. Not a replacement for healing, but a context in which healing becomes possible, because both people are willing to be seen, fully, without the armor of cultural familiarity to hide behind. There is no culture on earth that produces only secure people. There is no nationality that is a shortcut to a healthy relationship. But there is a version of international love, built on self-awareness, emotional honesty, and a real understanding of what you're actually looking for. That is among the most expansive, beautiful, and genuinely transforming experiences a human being can have. The question is whether you're going in with open eyes. Attachment styles don't disappear when you cross a border. They don't get left behind on a plane. They come with you. They shape what you see in another person. They shape what you feel, and they shape what you're able to build. Understanding your own attachment style isn't about self-criticism. It's about choice. Because when you know why you're drawn to what you're drawn to, you stop being driven by the pattern, and you start being capable of something greater. If this video made you think differently about love, about patterns, or about yourself, share it with someone it might help. And if you want to go deeper into the psychology of relationships and attraction, there's another video waiting for you right now. Like, subscribe, and keep thinking clearly about the things that matter most.